Ulonka tabati yada tó yẹ kó máa da ifá inú tó yẹ kó jẹun lọ fi bí pa. Ọba tálá ọba takuntakun Ṣàngó Èṣù Ògún Ọya Ọ̀ṣun. Kí ni ṣẹ̀ṣe tán ṣe nílé yìí o?
Peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Arisha Bemi. I want to talk about the powerful impact that our mothers, our females, our queens, our sisters, our aunts, our cousins, all the female and feminine energy I want to highlight on today's show. I wanted to share the value and the strength and the power that all women bring to our lives. First and foremost, if it wasn't for them, there would be no us. Episode about Queen Afeni Shakur, the mother of Tupac Shakur, and the person who inspired the legendary hit from Pac, Dear Mama. So in terms of Afeni Shakur, there's a documentary out called Dear Mama. I believe it's streaming on Hulu, and then I believe now it's streaming on Amazon as well, Amazon Prime. You can get it, but it's a very powerful documentary, and it kind of opened up my eyes to a lot of things that I did not know about Queen Afeni, as well as a lot of insight of things I learned about Pac. And so today I want to kind of dedicate it to the women who have made a significant impact in the struggle in terms of the fight for justice, freedom, equality for Black people. To that, I want to highlight Queen Afeni Shakur. With that being said, a little bit about Queen Afeni Shakur. She was born Alice Faye Williams in Lumberton, North Carolina on January 22nd, 1947. And as a child, she witnessed her mother suffering from the abuse of her father. And later they would eventually split up, and that's what kind of led to Afeni moving to Bronx, New York in 1958. She attended the Bronx High School of Science. Looking to cope with the demons from her past, she began using drugs, unfortunately, and that kind of, it played a role in the relationship that her and Pac had, with her dealing with the substance abuse and her, fighting her demons. In terms of that, it affected the relationship that she had with Pac. However, at about the age of 19, Afeni, then known as Alice Williams, met the Honorable El Haj Malik El Shabazz, one of my other heroes known as Malcolm X. And it was said that that's what kind of led her into joining the Black Panther Party. And once she joined the Black Panther Party in 1964, she began as a writer, for the Panther Post. And then after joining with a lot of other different opportunities that came to her from being a member of the Panthers, she then ended up marrying Lumumba Shakur. And so during that relationship, that's when Alice Williams changed her name officially to Afeni Shakur. About 55 years ago, April 2nd, 1969, is when she got caught up into the situation, what they called the Black Panther 21. Most of them being from the Black Panther chapter in Harlem, were indicted on conspiracy charges to shoot police officers, to bomb police stations, as well as to bomb railroad tracks and department stores, the New York Botanical Garden in the Bronx. So this case was actually known as the People of the State of New York versus Lumumba Shakur, also known as the Panther 21. So, as this kind of took place, this is when Afeni really began to start to really make an impact in the Black Panther Party. It was through the teachings and the leading of Lumumba Shakur that, later did fall, it did fall apart, and she did end up moving on, and they didn't last, I think, until like 1968, I want to say, is when they got divorced. But Afeni still became a leader, within her own right within the Black Panther Party. She began recruiting new members. She began helping to launch the Black Panther Party free breakfast for school-age children programs. She began to organize strikes against, landlords in the neighborhood who was overcharging or just being slumlords to the tenants of Black descent, in the apartments in New York City. She began teaching lessons in the Black Panther Party. She began leading a lot of different classes to teach, the new up and coming enrollment of Panthers that came into the movement. So she was a very powerful force in terms of being a teacher, in terms of being someone who was able to organize, somebody who was able to lead within a leadership position in the Black Panther Party. And so when she got arrested, that really, it led to a lot of different things kind of going against the Panther Party in terms of the organization being as strong as it was when it initially started. And when Afeni got locked up, they held her in the women's detention house in Manhattan, and she was finally freed on bail, I want to say January 30th of 1970, but her bond was 100,000. But because she had such a powerful impact on the women, not just in the Black Panther Party, but the women in the community as a whole. Afeni had a powerful impact on white women, Black women, on women of all nationalities and all races because she was so powerful and she had so much love in her heart in order to be a pillar of leadership, a pillar of revolution for women, not just Black women, but women as a whole. But primarily Black women were the ones who held it down, but she was still able to touch the hearts of many women from all colors, races, and creeds. So she was able to get, I believe they raised about $66,000 from Episcopal Church and Presbyterian Church in the New York area. And that was what led to her being able to get the remaining money based off of fundraisers, which if you check out the documentary, they speak about how when they raised the 100,000 based off of who she was and what value she added to the Panther Party, all the other Panthers who were locked up and incarcerated in the Panther 21 decided that Afeni should be the first one to get released. So by the age of 23, Afeni was a gifted writer, a teacher, a mentor, as well as she was a leader at the highest level for the Black Panther Party. So because she was doing so much of the work, everyone voted to get her out, in terms of when they first got the first $100,000 for bail. And when that happened, Afeni decided when she went to trial that she was going to represent herself, and a lot of people went against her. A lot of people said she shouldn't do that. She's going to make a fool out of herself. She's going to mess around and, get locked up. And she was facing, I want to say about 350 years in prison. But Afeni didn't listen to none of them. She knew what she wanted. She knew what she was going to do. She had a plan. She stuck to it. So she came to court, rocking her fashionable plaid pants with a black turtleneck and a long black leather vest. And she stood on stage in front of hundreds of white people in New York and took the microphone in her hand. And she called down the fury of her ancestors for the long history of brutality against her people and for being under oppression, for her comrades who were falsely accused, and was being held in the New York City, the New York City jail system. So with that, Afeni really started out as a leader from a very young age and from a very young membership of, the Black Panther Party. And so when she went to trial, by representing herself, she was able to eventually, get acquitted. And it's funny because even Lumumba, which was her husband at the time, but they were going through some things, he even said that, he kind of clowned a little bit, saying she was being too emotional and not taking it serious in terms of representing herself because she wasn't educated or she wasn't qualified. But Afeni said, man, fuck everything. I'm about to fuck this shit up. And this was the beginning of an imminent, irreparable division between her and Lumumba because she felt some type of way that he didn't have faith in her for her to represent herself. And when that happened, it was at that point that when Afeni was out on bond, her and Lumumba was already going through struggles. And, she decided that she was going to leave him. And during that summer of 1970, while she was out on bail, she had a couple of relationships with a couple of other lovers, and one of which who ended up becoming the father of Pac, a brother by the name of Billy Garland, who was also a member of the Panther Party, who was her driver at the time. And once that happened, Afeni was still out on bail. And when they got together or what have you, that's when she ended up being pregnant with Pac. And so this all took place right before she was to go to trial. And so she kept her pregnancy, with Pac quiet. She kept it secret and she really wasn't telling too many people because she didn't want a lot of people to know that she was pregnant. And so, due to this, she really was dealing with a lot of struggle when it came down to her to get ready to go to trial. So she became, extremely, irritated and frustrated and pissed off basically about the way they treated her when she was in prison, because of course she did have to tell the prison. They did find out from, doing tests and physicals, etc. But they treated her, terrible. And she didn't want to deal with anything that had to do with the prison doctors, the prison examiners. They wouldn't do anything to really help her. There was invasive, of course there was racist, and because of her being in there for what she was in there for, they really pretty much for the most part treated them, they treated them like shit, for lack of better words. And she didn't like that. She was like, there was no toilet paper, there was no food, the food was spoiled, the prison doctors were invasive and degrading during her examination practices. So she petitioned to be able to have her own doctors to come in and see her. And she also petitioned to the courts for them to at least be able to give her milk and eggs in order for her to at least give some sort of, nutritional value to her baby, as she had Pac while, she was carrying him. So fast forward to the trial, and man, Afeni came in there and she did her thing, and so when she got in there, she represented herself, and she actually defeated the New York system in terms of her being faced with all these charges and facing up to 350 years in prison. She was able, to be acquitted and be found not guilty on all 156 accounts. And I'm talking about, this is a story that was very new to me. I never heard about that until I watched the documentary. And I'm like, why has this not been spoke about? You got a woman who's never been to law school, who's never did anything with any formal law training, but was able to defend herself against 156 counts of pretty much terrorism that the state of New York charged her and the Panther 21 with. And she beat them single-handedly by herself to get herself found not guilty. But yet I've never heard of this story until I watched that documentary. So that within itself was enough to inspire me to create this episode of Sheroes to speak about Queen Afeni, who was at the top of the Panther Fist shirt that I'm rocking now, and the powerful, testimony that she has. Of course, she gave birth to the most powerful revolutionary rapper that we all know, known as Tupac Shakur, aka Machiavelli the Don. Rest up, big homie. But also, this was a very powerful, significant success story that I felt like the world should know, because Afeni was not only a Panther, she was not only a mother, she was not only a teacher, she was not only an author, she was a lot more. So you can actually put attorney or lawyer, unofficially on her resume as well, because she won what was the most expensive trial in all of New York state history at that time. Fast forward, after she defeats the state of New York in terms of getting her freedom back, 1 month later, after her being acquitted, June 16, 1971, she gave birth to a hell-raising heavenly son that we all affectionately got to grow and know as Tupac Shakur. So once she got out and she had Pop, she left the Black Panther Party because of a lot of differences that was going on internally between the Black Panther Party, which we all will find out later on, which will be the actions of COINTELPRO from the FBI, which infiltrated the Black Panther Party and caused all kind of confusion and beef and internal, struggle amongst the Black Panther Party. However, once she gave birth to Pac, she kind of separated from the party and started practicing as a paralegal. And at this time is when she met Mutulu Shakur. And that's when she got married to Mutulu, who Pac knew as his father. And she had, gave birth to Pac's sister. And so this is when about 1982, when all this went down. In 1984 is when she moved to Baltimore with Pac, and his sister. And that's when Pac then joined the Baltimore School of Performing Arts during the 1980s. His mother struggled with the crack addiction, and their relationship was really shaky. So by the time Pac was 13, they was homeless, and all he pretty much had at that time was the school. But he did eventually, go to the school and join the program, and was successful in the program until they had to get ready to move to Oakland. So a few years after being in the school, I believe Pac was 17 when they moved to Oakland. And so that is where the whole genesis of the story of the record that we all know around the world is one of the most powerful records ever made to dedicate in terms of honoring and giving flowers to our queens, which affectionately will be known as Dear Mama. Fast forward to 1996, we all know what happened to the God Pop. 97, Afeni stepped her game up, and then she decided to become the overseer of Pac's estate. In 1997, she started the Tupac Shakur Entertainment Company. She also would establish the Tupac Foundation of Arts, the Machiavelli clothing brand, in 2003. And what she did is all proceeds from all of Pac's estates would be something that she would help establish the Tupac Shakur Center for Arts located in Stone Mountain, Georgia. And at that time is when she had the biography written for her, which was penned by Jasmine Guy, who was a good friend of Pac's. So she, Afeni Shakur was a very powerful figure in American history, one that doesn't get, I feel like, the kudos or her flowers are just due based off of the significant impact that she's had, not only in the Black Panther Party, not only from giving birth to, like I said, the most powerful revolutionary artist / rapper that I've ever seen or heard in terms of music, but she was a political activist. She was a prominent speaker. She was a well-known philanthropist, and even though she dealt with a lot of struggles in her, her time here on this planet, she definitely made a powerful, very powerful, significant impact to the world by all of the work that she did, especially those, in the Black community. And so, she taught Pac all the principles that Pac knew. The way Pac was, he was a spitting image of his mother. Everything about Afeni was instilled into Pac. Everything, from being an artist, from being a revolutionary, from being a Panther, from being someone who stood up for the underdog, somebody who stood up for what was right by any means necessary, and as Pac would say, against all odds. So with that, I want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the queens out there, and to dear mama, Queen Afeni Shakur, much love. We love you. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you, not only for giving us the best rapper to ever live, but also for your powerful contributions to the struggle of Black people worldwide. So 21 gun salute to Queen Afeni Shakur. We stand on your shoulders, and we appreciate you. Dear mama, you are appreciated. I appreciate y'all for checking out this episode, for tuning into the African Spirituality Experience. And for all of my subscribers out there, if you look at the picture that I used for Queen Afeni in the thumbnail, you will see that she's wearing a traditional ileke that represents a rumula. And it also, the green and brown represents a rumula, and the red and black one represents Eshu, you know, two gods and deities from the Ifa, Orisha, Isheshe spiritual system. So we'll be making a video pretty soon coming out about what ilekes are, what they stand for, and a lot more in depth about the whole what an ileke is. And that within itself was something that was very powerful to me, because I'm not surprised to see her representing traditional African spirituality in terms of her rocking the ilekes, because someone with that kind of power, someone with that kind of vision, someone with that kind of focus, it's not a surprise to me that she was into studying the powerful experiences of African traditional religiosity, African traditional spirituality. And, you know, it was very a sense of pride for me to see that she was rocking the ilekes. And I look forward to sharing more about the ilekes for those who do not know. So with that being said, I appreciate you all for checking out this episode and for tuning into the channel. Don't forget to please like, subscribe, and share, as well as if you want to show your Panther pride and you want to rock you a dope Black Panther t-shirt or a hoodie, we also have those on the website as well. Appreciate y'all. For all the ladies out there who are part of the Ashe community, we have a lot more coming for you to highlight the powerful impact that the feminine energy, the queens, have made, not only in the world, but also in our lives. So I salute you all, dear mama. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This has been another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Orisha Bemi. We out. Peace.
Ẹni tó gbàgbé ilé ṣàpò ìyàgbọ́, tẹ́ǹtì ẹni takísà ní tàtàn, ò bá padà sílé anítìjàkọ, ẹja lọ pé eégún mo sí ẹni gbẹ́rẹ́ ìpàkọ́. Forsake not your ancestors and pray